So actually, together with Dr. O'Rourke, I participate in a cost action on cholangiocarcinoma, and part of the cost action is also our next speaker. Our next speaker is an ERC grantee. Dr. Silvia Affo is a group leader at the Tumor Microenvironment Plasticity and Heterogeneity Group in Barcelona, Spain. After obtaining her PhD at the University of Barcelona, she moved to Columbia University in New York, where she dedicated to the investigation of the tumor microenvironment in liver tumors. In 2021, thanks to competitive European funding, Dr. Affo rejoined Spain, and after obtaining the prestigious European Research Council starting grant, she was promoted to group leader in 2024. Her research is now focused on the tumor microenvironment manipulation as a strategy to improve response to therapy in patients with liver tumors. So welcome, Silvia. Thanks for being with us, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chiara, for your invitation. I hope you can hear me well. And let me put the presentation in full screen. Can you see it?
Yes, we do.
Okay, thank you. So thank you again for the kind invitation. And today I just present you a little my experience, like my journey, right, through the ERC grant. And I was also a Marie Curie fellow somehow. So I was in the US during 7 years. And to be back to Europe, I applied for the Marie Curie. I was successful in this as well. And I think it's very well worth it to participate in European call. They are very competitive, but they are a unique opportunity to keep investigating and to have a chance for yourself and your research to succeed, not only in your country, but also really in Europe, and to stay connected. So I actually want to start with the timeline. You have asked and discussed about how long does it take from writing to submitting, what can happen there. And this is a little how it worked for me. So I started writing in August 21. My ERC starting grant submission was the deadline for this call was in January 22. And these are the months of preparation. And I started my ERC in September 2023. So this is almost 2 years later. So think on time on what you want to do. Don't wait the last year. You can apply, try, and many times you're not successful at the first time. So what happened to me actually was that I submitted my grant in January 22. I got the first notification to go to the interview in May, and I was very happy at that time. And I had my interview in September of the same year. Sorry. What happened here is that before having received the results that came up in November 22, there was the deadline for the next call. That was actually my last time I could apply for the study ERC, few days before having received the comments, right, from the panel. And it was a little hard, but I still submitted again for the ERC call starting in 2023, because I didn't know if I will get through it or no. So I was notified, I don't know what's happening, sorry. I was notified in November that I was good. I was evaluated as an A, but unfortunately I was in the reserve list. So that was a hard for me, but I was, let's say, lucky enough, even if I prefer to don't use the lucky word much, and I will explain you later why, because I only stayed in the reserve list during 2 months, and in February 23 I was notified. I was successful. I was very happy. We all were very happy. I signed my agreement in April, and I decided myself to start the latest as possible, because having an ERC means a lot. It means you have to build your own group. You have to start a new research line. So I asked to start in September of the same year. So you may think, why should I apply, right? Because of all these steps, all this work you have to do. But actually, I would say, why not? Because you have a lot to gain and a lot to learn. For me, it was a very instructive experience. I learned a lot. I also met wonderful people. scientifically and personally, it was a real growth for me. And usually, and mainly in women, unfortunately, we have this imposter syndrome where we think, we have this assumption that what we know is very limited compared to what other people know. But sometimes we just have to keep confidence and remember that our little message, or what we think it's a little message, can be an important piece of the big puzzle. And this is why actually I don't want to say anyone who get this kind of grants has been just lucky. And you may also think, why should I apply? Like, my research is very niche. Whoever cares about fish genetic design, for example, or about fibroblasts in my case, or you can see here, this is available for you all at this link that I put down on the right. You have the list of all the abstract titles that have been financed, that have been supported by the ERC. So every topic matters, and there are other people interested in your research. Okay, then let's say you decide to go for it. What should you do next? So I think, as we mentioned before, actually Dr. Vikas also mentioned, now I think the most important is that you need to have an idea. And the idea now has to be, and before, had to be beyond the state of the art. In my case specifically, it was still needed or suggested to be high risk, high gain. This is why I left it here in this slide. But then I changed quickly after listening to Dr. Vika's talk, and I underlined for you as well to be beyond the state of the art. And again, the only criteria, as we have heard a lot today, is excellence. Excellence of the PI and of the research project, most importantly. And why you should apply? Because it gives you so many chances to succeed in your career and to start your own group. And it gives you 5-year time and funding protection. Okay, then what is also important, and we have already talked about this today, is information and formation, I think. This is my opinion. And you can join the European Research Council YouTube channel, actually. That is where Dr. Vikas also shared some of this video. There are several videos where that you should watch the ERC instructional videos describing the full grant application and evaluation process, step by step. But you also have to get to know your call carefully, your eligibility, extension of eligibility, and all the information. You also have this year, for example, the ERC starting grantees tips from winning applications from 2024, which is very nice to listen and share other people's experience. But let's get started. So what is my advice is to get in contact with your national contact points. There are national contact points from the ERC. So I'd contact them because they will put you in they will give you all the information you need. They will give you all the details you need to know. And they may also give you the possibility, and this was my case in Spain, where I applied, to participate in the reading days. The reading days are unique days where a generous researcher have shared their proposals from previous years, and you can read them. You cannot take pictures. You have, our kids, we had 3 or 4 hours, and I wrote down a lot of things. I have it still in my house in a drawer, and you can see what are I don't know, like in my example, in my case, I look at what 2 different successful proposal had in common. And then I also ask other people who were not successful in their ERC proposal to share their ERC. And then I was really able to build a map where I summarize the common points found in successful proposal, which, for example, was the presence of a graphical abstract, and avoid common mistakes that I could detect in the non-successful proposal. But let's start writing. So we also discussed, I think Dr. Gabi writes this question before, and where should I start from? Dr. Vika's answered that no, it really depends. Now, one successful grantee started from the B2, and it's okay. I also have I know a lot of people who started from there, and I'm lefty. I'm a little dyslexic, so I start with the acronym and title. For example, for me, it has to be very clear what I'm talking about when I'm writing a project. If I don't have this part, for example, I feel very stressed. So I think it's very dependent on how your brain works and is developed. And then I started with a B1 actually. Because I work this way, I start from concise ideas and aspects, and then I can develop them better. But I didn't want to start in a long way with the B2 and details without having the big picture. But again, this really depends on you. And as we mentioned before, the graphical abstract, I think is very useful, and I found it in all successful proposals. Another important thing is the abstract. I think this is the first impression that the reviewers will have about you and your proposal. So try with your abstract to be concise, appealing, inspiring, explicit why it is important to investigate the field you are proposing, why now it's the right moment, and why you are the right person. Tell the reviewers that you're a story, and tell them how your project is ambitious, but it is also feasible. And take in mind that the abstracts are publicly available, as I showed you before, and at this link you can also see them. And therefore, do not add sensitive or unpublished data there. Practical tips, I would say, again, the graphical abstract is important for you to clarify your idea, and for the reviewers that don't read your proposal in the best time of the day or the night, or they are also human person who will do their best to look at your proposal whenever they can. And having a nice picture or a nice summary always helps the reviewer. My advice is also to think and write 2 or 3 fundamental questions that have not been addressed yet and that your project aims to solve. And think about ambitious objectives beyond the state of the art, indeed. I think a maximum of 3 or maybe 4 objectives I've seen as well, but not more. And these objectives really need to be intellectually it's better if they are intellectually connected, but they have to be independent. So each other's they should not depend one to the other ones, to avoid the waterfall effect. That I think was something that was really evaluated when I applied. I don't know if it is still the case or not, but if it can be intellectually connected and independent each other's, I would suggest to keep this way. And maybe one figure may be the schematic workflow of your project, showing the structure of your project, which are the fundamental questions, the main objectives, and the specific task, again, to clarify everything. Milestones in this case are not needed, but the Gantt chart, it is needed. I think it was part B2. Now I have some doubts, but I think so. And the milestone was something that I was also a little scared and shocked when I applied for the Marie Curie. I didn't even know how to write that part, but at the end, it also helps to clarify the project. So you can decide for your ERC proposal if you keep the milestones or if you just put aims, objectives, and how to structure your proposal. Okay, then when I was looking at different people proposal, I also saw that the non-successful proposal did not use a consistent style. And I suggest you, and I took into consideration to use a consistent style through the entire proposal and aims, to give the same structure to all aims and objectives. For example, in my case, I put for each aim, for each objective, a fundamental question, a background, hypothesis, novelty, preliminary data, and a contingency plan. Indeed, you can put collaborators in an ERC starting grant, but you have to make sure that you will do all the work. So the collaborators do not perform tasks for the ERC starting grant, but they provide support, and no risk is assigned to collaborators. I think this is something very important, and I think it could be different from the consolidator grant, but for starting, it was very important, at least when I applied. So make sure with your ERC national point if it is still a problem. Then you have to show the reviewer that you are the right person, and that your project is connected to your expertise from your postdoctoral studies, for example, or from your junior leadership, depending on which was your position before applying to the ERC, but that you are exploring new aspects and concepts based on new or state-of-the-art methodologies, but applied to a completely new context. So I agree with Dr. Vikas that you can also use already published methodologies, but the novelty may be that you apply this methodology to new settings, to do something new. And I think it's also important to present preliminary data supporting your idea. I was happy to hear that it is good to present. I don't think many data are needed. And I think you have to provide preliminary data supporting the novelty or supporting the fact that your project may have a high gain to the society, for example, no, in case of cancer, or how it will be outbreaking. And I will also suggest to explicit how the high, okay, now high risk, maybe you will not want to add to your proposal, but in case you have some risk, explain explicitly how this will be balanced by the high gain. For example, in my proposal, in one of the points, I remember to write that if one of the objectives will not be successful, indeed, it will still give rise to new knowledge in the field that we don't know yet, because it has not been investigated, and that it may be relevant because of. So explain why this is needed and can be useful to you and to other people. And then prepare a contingency plan. I think it is needed for all objectives. It is better if you, I mean, in part B1, it should be shorter and more detailed in part B2. And then another thing I've heard in all the previous presentation, and I also think it's very important and key, is to get feedback and to do some brainstorming with colleagues, trusted colleagues. So I also suggest to select those trusted colleagues and friends to brainstorm about specific aims and objectives of your project. When you write an ERC grant, you may want not to share the entire proposal with somebody, even if he's a very known, an estimated person, but you can share objectives, and actually each of the objective can be shared with the person who is the expert in that field, for example, because conceptual mistakes or weakness can be detected only by trusted and good colleagues. So you have to ask for feedback from trusted experts in your field, and accept, which is the most difficult sometimes, accept the constructive criticism and advices. For example, if everyone you send the objective to doesn't really understand something, a methodology or a concept, you should really take in consideration to rephrase it or to change it, because your reviewers may also have some problems understanding the same objective. So again, we mentioned before, but this is how I envision it. What is B1? You should intrigue a little. In B2, you try to convince, and with the interview, you really go to get it and to inspire and to tell them why you're the right person. This is how I started. You saw a nice logo at the beginning of my presentation, but this was what I was drawing, and my notes at the beginning of the writing. This probably was August or September 2021. This is how I decided. I investigated cancer-associated fibroblasts, and this on the left, I pretended to be a fibroblast. I named my project DynamHit or DynamHit. I just want something that reminds a dynamite, but it's also a dynamic thing, and HET is the heterogeneity. This is how the idea started to grow. And then I also took some notes during the reading days, as I told you. And from there, I took this idea in the middle to write down a schematic figure where I put the 3 fundamental questions that I aim to address with my objectives, and subdivide them in A1, 2, and 3. And then this is how I clean up my idea after a while. So these actually were some of the points in the interview presentation. So it was not so clean for the part B1 and B2. But here I was able to summarize which were the 3 main things that I wanted to do with DynamHead. DynamHead wanted to decipher, dissect, and reprogram cancer-associated fibroblast heterogeneity and reprogramming. Okay, so this is important, but again, it depends on how your brain works a little. For me, it's very important to be schematic and to see and to know which are the key points of what I'm doing. Once you have done, you have all the information. Once you have written your proposal, what is important to do is to choose, write your panel and choose it carefully. In my case, it was very easy. I was sure my panel was LS4, Physiology in Health Disease and Aging. And inside LS4, there is LS12, I think. I'm not sure now, but it's a cancer panel, so I was sure. But I also have friends that were not sure, and actually they did mistakes, and their project was not really understood sometimes, or maybe the panel was not the right one. So at the end, you have to be careful and to choose the right panel. These are more or less the revision steps of the ERC starting grant application. Dr. Vikas has presented very nicely before, so you don't need to look carefully at this, but I would suggest to focus only on the left part. So decide when to apply, write your CV like a rock star, and it doesn't mean to oversell you nor your research, but I think it's very important to tell a story as well to the reviewer. If you had any interruptions, tell them what happened to you. If you are very passionate about something, tell them, or if you are dedicated to the cost action, for example, or to other initiative, make them explicit. I think everyone will enjoy your story, and maybe will understand you and your proposal better based on your on your personal or career steps. Write a strong proposal and submit your application. If you're lucky enough, no, but if you follow most of this direction and you build a stronger proposal, you may go to the interview. And I would say here it's time to build your confidence about yourself, confidence about your research, and confidence about your project. So you will have to reread your project, extrapolate it, prepare a nice presentation. This presentation has to be a scientific and not business presentation. This is also very important, because at this time, if you go to interview, many of your institutes may suggest you to have coach. I did have a coach, and most of the proposals that were successful, I talked with people, and they did have all a coach who trained them how to build the presentation and help them. But you have to fight with this coach, because they tend to give you a business-like presentation, and you should not let them do that, and you still have to know what is the science, what is your project, and how you envision it as a researcher. And then my suggestion, and then if you go to the interview, you have to practice, change, learn a lot, rehearse. And this is what I found. This is publicly available, and it's actually published. I put the link. It's a person who applied in 2018 on the top and said, today I found out that I failed the ERC grant. Knowing that I did my absolute best means it was out of my control to get it. So this is also, this person had training and knows about the sphere of control and out of control. So I'm happy to see this. But also is aware that she or he did the absolute best. And very important for the rest of us, let's keep trying. So yes, if you don't get, it's not a failure. Hopefully you will get some feedback. If you get feedback, this is the most valuable thing you can get. I got feedback from 14 reviewers at the end, before going no, after the interview. You get to know after the interview all the revisions, but it's a lot of people who will look at your proposal, and having the revisions is very important. And this is on the bottom, the same person who in 2020 got the ERC, and say, sometimes you have to lose in order to win. Very excited to announce that after failing twice, I was awarded an ERC starting grant. Thanks to my group and colleagues for their support. Trust me, you have to keep applying. And this, I think, is the message I want to conclude as well. So trust me, you have to keep applying and try applying. I wish you all a good luck. I hope you will apply. And this is me at the end of the interview. This is the settings where I put my interview at my institutions. These on the right are some of the notes I prepared for this crazy interview. And on the bottom is my dream team that I had the opportunity to start building thanks to this funding. And so really, really good luck, and try it. It is worth it to try.
So thank you so much, Silvia. You are intriguing, convincing, and inspiring, absolutely. So time for questions. We're a little bit late, but it's so important to take advantage of your presence here. So there is a question in the chat for Colm regarding the pyramid with the wider society. And our attendees asking, what do you think regarding involving patient and patient empowerment when we talk about the impact on the wider society regarding the Marie Curie?
Of course. Thanks very much, Alexandra, for the question. You are, of course, absolutely correct that the ultimate goal, I think, for most of us is to positively benefit patients, as is the end users or end beneficiaries. However, I would say that it depends where in your MSCA proposal you indicate it. So in the excellence section at the beginning, that is, of course, an important perspective of your work. However, by the time you get to the impact section, that needs to be literally the potential next knock-on steps following your fellowship. So at least in my situation, I was investigating the preclinical potential of already available drugs. If that was successful, then the knock-on effect will be to expand production of those drugs and to actually test them in trials. Unfortunately, that would be no guarantee that patients would benefit from it after the trial period. So that's the reason there. However, I think it's an excellent question. And one last thing I will add on is that if you're going to be applying anytime in the near future, it certainly is worthwhile contacting patient societies. They're often very interactive and happy to give letters of support that you could attach as an appendix to your application.
Thank you, Colm. And since we started from you, another question for you. Colm, do you have any suggestion on how to choose the hosting lab and how to choose the mentor? Because we have heard about two-way transfer of knowledge. So, of course, we should bring something to our mentor's lab, and our mentor should be, of course, expert in something that we are not expert of. So tips on how to choose a mentor and institution.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll just say that when I joined Professor Anderson's group, I was still writing up my PhD, so I didn't think too much about it. But thankfully, there was a two-way transfer of power, a very clear synergy between our backgrounds anyway. So I do think, one, that's an important consideration, especially if you're already after joining a postdoc lab. If you have very similar backgrounds, then of course that could be an issue with this call. In terms of how to select them, I would say likely what the three of us on the screen are members of now, using international professional networks to get to know the lay of the land. Who's a specialist in what area? What are their expertises? What interests you that you would like to learn fresh from your PhD that you do not understand or have skills in right now? And really speak to the lab as well, of course, before trying to sign up to anything.
Okay, thank you, Colm. And of course, also networking. We mentioned we mentioned the three of us the precision biliary tract cancer cost action. This is a really nice platform of cooperation among scientists working in the cholangiocarcinoma. So if you check the website, there are also possible hosting labs, and one of them is I think both Colm and Silvia made their ability to be hosting lab. So we switch then to ERC. Silvia, I really like your first slide on the imposter syndrome. I think we all suffer of imposter syndrome. So when you thought about founding of your project, how did you choose a ERC and not a regular Horizon 2020 grant or a national grant, local grant? So how did you choose ERC and why ERC since you were in the US?
Excellent. Yeah, thank you. I think it's very important because what I did, thank you, Chiara, because I think you have to have clear why you want to apply to certain code and why and in what will make it the difference. So I didn't even know about the existence of the ERC. I hope the ERC people are not connected when I was in the US. Okay, so because it was a different system, you know, I know everything about the NIH system and everything, but I didn't know about the ERC. And then I came back to Spain with the Marie Curie, and then I have to renounce because of another one that was Marie Curie co-funded as well. And then also to connect to the question you did before, you have to make sure which lab you choose if you are abroad, in which lab you land in, because you should find generous people that want people to grow. This is very important because not all PI wants other people to grow. So I think it's important to check if this PI can support your growth as a scientist. And then just to be back to my story, I had this grant for 3 years. I could apply for some project, national project in Spain. And then I asked my institution, what should I do? My grant was 3 years. What should I do next to be an independent PI? And they told me, no, you can apply for another like postdoctoral kind grant, which was 5 years. And I said, no, I'm old now. Like, you know, I had a 7 years postdoc research assistant now in Marie Curie. And then they told me, you can get, or I asked, what could I do to have my position? So my motivation was to get a position. And they told me, you may apply for a starting. And I said, what is a starting? And they told me what was a starting, and I took it seriously. So this is why I said formation is everything, because I didn't know even what it was, and I'm a little ashamed now, you know, but it was important for me because I had clear my goal, and my goal was to get a position, to be independent. I felt ready to get it. And then I really did all the trainings. I did everything. It was listed. And I think thanks to this formation, I got to the interview. And then in the interview, you know, you need something else. You need something more. But when I reapply in 23, and this is where the imposter syndrome should be gone, but it's still there, I still went to the interview for the next call. So that proposal was good. It was not lucky, but and this is something, and here I have answered you everything, the imposter syndrome, but I think it has to be clear why you're doing this. So for me, I wanted to get a position, and at my institution was clear that if I get this, I can get a position, maybe, and then I got, so it's good.
So it is also important to have a clear goal for our own career, as you both said. So what do I want for my project, of course, but also for my career growth. Silvia, I want to briefly ask you the question that we received earlier in the chat regarding preliminary data, because for ERC we are talking about, well, we said it was a high risk, high gain, and now it's beyond the state of the art. Anyway, we are proposing in an ERC something that is very innovative, out from the box. So what is your opinion, and how was your experience regarding preliminary data? Was your out from the box idea supported by a lot of preliminary data, or what is your advice regarding how many preliminary data should I write in my ERC?
Yeah, I didn't have many, but in the reading days, I got to know that it was not needed to have too many. So 3 to 4 mini figures, I would say, not the entire page figure, but like really the two graphs or even a drawing could be helpful. Like at some point I draw something and I gave them, and I did a PCR to prove that what I get is there, but I draw it. I draw cells, I draw what I stimulated, I draw them an arrow saying this is increased and this is down in 2 different conditions with a qPCR. but that was enough to prove that your hypothesis may be valid or may lead to something. Then you have to justify in the legend, like tell exactly what you're doing. So I think, yes, it is still preliminary. So you don't need an N of 10. You don't need maybe it's an N of 3, and it has a good it's a good result, or it's a promising result that shows that your proposal may be successful. It doesn't have to. And actually, I've also talked with people who ask me, like, shouldn't I apply at the liver meet, at the European liver meeting, for example, and they have already results. So you have to make sure. So these proposals are very different from the national ones. So in the national one, we need a lot of data. Basically, we have to have the project finished. Or NIH, we need already a paper done to tell them all the data. Here, no. Here, it's your creativity, and you have to support, but with easy and appealing, maybe, appealing experiments. If you want to show that your technology may be applied to something else, this is innovative. Tell them how, and if it is an easy thing, it's even better, because you want to catch the attention, and your creativity applies in an easy way to a complicated field. This is the most amazing thing, I think. So it's needed, but it has to be simple, clear, and not too much, in my opinion.
Absolutely. Thank you, Silvia. Colm, do you want to add something finally as your final advice to maybe PhD students that are getting the PhD and then they will be ready in the future to apply for a Marie Curie?
Yeah, I would say maybe two things. One is take your time. It's a long research life. After the end of the PhD, you're likely very tired. And if there's a good time to change the focus of your research, it's probably when you go into your first postdoc. And second of all, I would add, try to find a buddy who's not necessarily in your field of research, who you feel comfortable receiving very blunt feedback from, and who you won't take a lot of insult from, because that's really the best way that you iron out issues, in at least my own experience.